never know what you're going to Just take things slow. Right.
It's great to see everybody here tonight. Thank you so much for coming. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Pam Rogers. I'm the president of the Middletown Township Board of Education. I'm proud to serve for you guys, and I'm so happy that you could make it here tonight for the first step in our process, our strategic planning process. I'd like to thank my board members for coming this evening. Mr. Mike Donlin is here. Ms. Joan Minuise is here, as well as Deborah Wright and John Little and Nick DeFranco. And we are so glad that they're here with us tonight. We're so glad that you're here with us tonight. We're happy to have Schoolhouse Strategies here with us. If you'll notice in the back, there's a table with cards and pens. If there's something that you think of while the presentation is going on, please jot it down. You can leave it in the box if you don't feel like getting up and speaking yourself. We also have some cards from Schoolhouse Strategies there. Without further ado, I'd like to introduce to you Dr. Bill George. Thank you.
Welcome, everybody. I'm proud to say this is my second strategic planning. We are Middletown. In the back of the room and around, you'll see our building level administrators, central office staff. I know we have many teachers in the audience as well, and many of which are parents in our school community. Most of all, welcome to you, school community, of taking the time to come here. We are Middletown, right? So we're 42 square miles. We're amazingly over 19,000 parents, right? 9,500 plus students, 1,500 employees, and we're embarking on our next 5 years of our strategic plan. So I know the goal of the board is to get your input. We really value stakeholder input. We have now approaching 3,000 participants in our survey process, which is still open and still ongoing. We will, in the future, through Schoolhouse Strategies, be bringing that data, those data points to all of you and discussing those data points. We have more than 10,000 written responses on that survey, and growing. And I'll let former Commissioner Hespy speak about what that means, because he's pretty impressed by that. And we are too. We're grateful, because our goal as a Board of Education and administrative team is to best serve you, the constituents, the taxpayers, the parents, and most of all, the students of Middletown Township Public School District. So without any further ado, because we really want to focus the majority of our time on hearing from all of you. So without any further ado, I'm going to introduce, but I have to do diligence here to this process, because I'm grateful to the board for bringing in Schoolhouse Strategies. Their expertise is known, it's national. So I'm going to start with Lynn Strickland. I've known Lynn for a long time, not personally, professionally. She may not have known me, but I know her because she served as the executive director for the Garden State Coalition. And for those of you that don't know what the Garden State Coalition is, the Garden State Coalition works with suburban school districts, lobbies with legislators, supports parents, families, students, is well known and respected. Lynn Strickland is well known and respected in Trenton, advocating for suburban districts. And we are a suburban district. Dave Hespy, former Commissioner of Education, first Assistant Attorney General, which I didn't know until I Googled and made sure I was getting it all right. And so that's pretty impressive too. He has a vast resume. He's also served as a college president. So the board has entrusted a third party to make sure that we do diligence to looking at every perspective. We are confident with the outstanding administrative team. A lot of our administrators are standing in the back. And like I said, very grateful to the teachers, staff members, assistant principals, directors, district directors, assistant superintendents who've come here today. And don't want to name everybody because we want to focus our time on all of you. But having Dave Hespy and having Lynn Strickland and really focusing this on what our community thinks is what tonight's all about. So thank you so much for your participation. Without any further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Commissioner Hesper.
Good evening, everyone. As you can tell, we're very excited about this opportunity to work with you on an initiative that only comes around a few times a decade, and that's a strategic planning initiative, because this is where the community comes together. It's not meaningful unless we get your input and we allow you to come into this process and drive this process. As the superintendent was indicating, Middletown is a very unique place. It's one of the largest, if not the largest, suburban district in the state of New Jersey, and brings with it a great deal of diversity. And I'm going to talk about that uniqueness quite a bit during our presentations tonight. So the overview, we're going to give you a quick look into strategic planning, make certain that you're comfortable with what we're going to be trying to accomplish over the next few months, where you fit into it, and you'll see that you're in this orbit. You're in this orbit of strategic planning, because it really doesn't work without your input. So I'm very happy that we had such a great turnout tonight, because otherwise we're going to be struggling to really understand. And that's what strategic planning is all about. Once I give you that insight into strategic planning, we're going to introduce you to data. A strategic planning process needs to be data informed. We need a tremendous amount of factual information to guide us, to help us see the same things. In life, we all have our personal experiences with the schools, with the school district. But the only way to make sense of those thousands of personal experiences is to let the data guide us and give us the context we need to make sense of all those experiences. So we're going to do a second PowerPoint tonight, and that's going to be a district profile where we introduce you to some of that data and provide you the opportunity to go on the district's website and pull down a lot more information about the areas that you might be interested in, and that will certainly help us as we go into forums 2 and 3 later on in the year. And then the last hour, if not more, we will be focused on a town hall type experience, where we want to, as I always say, get as many touches on that mic as possible, because that way we can understand your perspectives, the parents, maybe we have some students here, teachers, staff members, business folks in the community, maybe some community leaders from the municipal world or from religious world. So all those perspectives are very helpful to us in forging that common understanding, and then forging some common goals. And that should take us till 9. I'm a big fan of starting on time and ending on time. We're going to have multiple ways for you to provide input. Superintendent already indicated some of those. Certainly you're going to have the opportunity to help us by going to the mic tonight. Some of you might not want to do that. Some of you might have to go home early. We have index cards available to you on the table. There are pens there. So don't feel compelled to grab the mic if you'd like to fill out an index card and just give us the input there. There's a survey that is being widely accessed by the folks of Middletown. Tremendous response rate. When I was a professor of educational leadership at Rowan University, I used to do a lot of surveys, and a lot of my doctoral students would ask me, what's a good response rate of a survey? And I would say around 10–15%. You're going to blow that one out of the water. You should feel good about that, because it means you really care and you really want to be involved in the process. So that's tonight. And so let me now start with PowerPoint 1, and this is an overview of the strategic planning process. So key points here is just understand that this is an improvement process. What we're trying to do is find ways, goals that we can use to improve the educational offerings, your extracurricular offerings, your ability to continue delivering the curriculum at a high level, and identify those challenges that might get in the way of delivering that curriculum at a very high level. You know, most of our moms at some point in time said to us that if you only put your mind to it, you can do anything. How many moms said that to you? My mom used to say that to me all the time. Well, that's strategic planning in a nutshell, but it's just not one person's mind. We're going to put all of our minds to improving what we do here in Middletown, and if we all put our minds to it, I think we can really come up with a very, very good strategic plan that will guide decision making in Middletown over the next 5 years. So oftentimes, you go out in the world and you say, all right, maybe I can find someone who can define strategic planning better than I could ever define strategic planning. So here we have a great quote. Key words in this quote, I think, disciplined effort, I think, says it all in a nutshell. We want to be deliberative, right? We want to be fact-based, we want to be inquiry-based, and fundamental decisions. We're focused on strategic. We're not focused on the weeds here. We're focused on strategic, fundamental decisions. And if we do that, I think we're going to have a great strategic planning process and a great strategic plan. Also note the last sentence here. We're emphasizing what we know today, but we're trying to predict the future. So this is a future-oriented document. This is going to help us navigate the next 5 years. So think about it that way, is that we're going to use data that we have now to help us predict this 5-year strategic plan. Many benefits of strategic planning, connects the community. Very important part of strategic planning is bringing the community together, see the same things in the data, understand the challenges together, and then form a consensus around future approaches. Helps with communication. As we can see here, I'm sure there's a very diverse group, and we'll actually get into that in a second. But the benefits of strategic planning are tremendous to any organization, and especially to school organizations. Strategic planning is inquiry-based. We're going to ask questions. We're going to ask questions about what the school is doing well now. Matter of fact, I'm going to go through a number of slides because there's a lot going very well in Middletown. But we're also going to ask about, well, what are the challenges out there? And there's a whole bunch of external challenges that we need to be aware of. And we also have some internal challenges. So external challenges. Most school districts get a substantial portion of your funding through state resources. Those are starting to dry up for districts like Middletown. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about internal challenges, enrollment declines happening throughout Middletown, and we'll talk about that as well. And there are more than just those two. I just cite those two because I think those are probably two that you've spoken about before, you've heard about before, but they are very real, and they are challenges that we will need to work through during the strategic planning process, as well as some others, and I'll surface some of those when we discuss the data in a second. All right, so all good planning processes have three things. We want to aspire together. We want to aspire to great things. So we're going to spend some time at the next forum reviewing the vision and the mission and the values of the school district, because that guides us. That will give us the direction of what we want to accomplish. And then we're going to say to ourselves, all right, we have these challenges. We've identified places that we think we can give our students a greater shot at success. Not today, but in the future. We're looking 5 years from now. How do we make certain that our students' access to successful schools continues 5 years from now? And so we're going to look at that improvement process, the goals and objectives. And no plan, no matter if it's your own home budget or your home schedule, is going to work unless we're committed to it. You revisit it, you track it, you make certain it's working for you. And I summed all that up under accountability. And so how does that play out for the next few months? All right, so three steps in this process, very general steps. First thing we're going to do is develop a committee of the board and administration who serves as the guides of this process. They own the process. They make certain that this process happens in a meaningful, deliberative way. So that's happened, and you saw robust communication of all the strategic planning I've done. I congratulate Middletown on doing tremendous communication out to all the stakeholders, which is very difficult in a place this big and a place this diverse, geographically, population-wise. And then the focus needs to come to the data. And here's where you're going to see this PowerPoint. It's going to be available on the website, and I think you'll be very impressed that in this PowerPoint, which runs around 50 slides, you will see that profile of the district in many different perspectives that we can then use to guide our decision making, develop metrics when we've established goals. So in many different ways, the data is going to become very important to us. And that's all been done. And so we are now at step 2. This is where you are front and center stage, the community input. So if you're at Disney World and you go to one of the maps that says you are here, so we're at the first forum, that's where we are. And tonight we're going to make certain that everyone is on the same page in terms of what we're trying to accomplish, and then we're going to go right into our data, and then we're going to go right into our forum where we're going to get your input in whatever way you want. You can give it to us on cards, on the microphone. Lynn and my cards are available, business cards. If you'd much rather just call us on the phone, you can do that too. So there's many ways to give us your input. The second forum is in November, and here's where we're going to take that deeper dive. We're going to develop together a vision, a mission, the values. We're going to start identifying your priorities, put more definition around the challenges and the goals of the district. Going to do group work, a lot of group work in the second forum. We're going to be at tables and we're going to exchange a lot of information and do some work. So that's where we roll up our sleeves. In the second forum and the third forum, we really get to the bedrock of strategic planning. We're going to find action steps to accomplish these more general goals, and then prioritize, identify resources, which is a huge part of strategic planning. Is once we've identified what we want to do, we then have to deploy towards that. And that means resources, people, and develop that capacity. That will be in the third forum. And then we're going to have and present to you all of the online survey data, which is tremendous, by the way. I've had the opportunity to start reviewing some of the data from the survey, and it's tremendous. I would urge everyone, regardless of what else you do tonight or in the other forums, to fill out that survey and get it returned to us. Last step, and that's where we've done all this hard work. We're going to give it to the board. The board's then going to have the ability to consider it and adopt it, and also will establish how they want to track progress through annual reviews. Certainly this is a living document, and we fully expect that the board, over the time period covered by the strategic plan, that 5-year period, they will adapt as necessary to make certain that that overall goals are being achieved. So that's the process. I'm going to just stop here for a second and just ask, general, I'm just going to walk around. Anyone have any questions? And by the way, I'll be here after the forum. If anyone has any questions, feel free to come on up and chat with me. If you don't have any questions, just want to chat, I'll be here. So any questions about the process? If not, we're just going to keep rolling along. All right, excellent. Okay, we're going to load our second PowerPoint at this point in time, and we're going to go through some of the data. Now remember, this is a big PowerPoint. It's on the website. The goal here is to make certain that we have all of the data we need, and so that's the purpose here. I'm just going to go through it quickly, hit some highlights for you, some trends so you can see what's on this PowerPoint. I hate to give people reading assignments, but I would love for you to go through some of the data and see what's going on at the various district schools. Sometimes as a parent, and I would confess to this myself, is that the school your child happens to be in is the one you're focused on, but not the other schools. And that's a shame because there's a lot of good things going on throughout the district. All right, we should be good. Okay. Actually, I think we need from the beginning. It does. I'm trying to get full screen. It's not going full screen. Okay. We're going to do it at a slightly minimized level here.
The bottom right, the double square, bottom right corner, the arrows on it.
Yeah, go to the next slide. Click there. Go to from beginning. Click there. Brilliant. I love when it comes together. I just love when it comes together. Okay, so why is data important? Now, data is very important because we'll just think about your lives, right? We're constantly seeing data. Coming here tonight, I hope that none of this happened to you, but you're going to be driving your car, and that car is going to be giving you a tremendous amount of feedback. It's going to tell you when someone's in your blind spot. It's going to tell you when your engine's overheating. It's going to tell you when the world's coming to an end. And all that data is guiding your decision making. All right, I'm low on gas, I'm going to go into the gas station. And same thing with an organization. That organization receives all this data, and the data is going to guide the school district in how to make changes, how to adapt. And so think about the data in that way. The data is intended to guide us in understanding what the challenges are, what the opportunities are, and then help us make that action step. Okay. I'm not getting it that way back there. I was a professor for 10 years. I kind of learned how to screen, but I guess that's not working. All right, so the first part of the data, and Bill, I think, went into this quite a bit, why Middletown is unique. Historically unique, always been an educational leader for all the decades I've been involved in education. Middletown's always been an educational leader. To this day, it's maintained that reputation. But it's also very big. It's also very diverse. Big geographically, big in terms of population. And because of that uniqueness, the challenges are just part of that uniqueness. This is an inherent part of that uniqueness. So the first, just an example of that, think of our state school funding formula. Now, the typical district in New Jersey is a small K-8 district, probably less than 2,000 kids. That is not anywhere near Middletown. It's K-12, one of the largest school districts in the state. How does that school funding formula account for the uniqueness of Middletown? So part of what we're going to be, this process of inquiry is going to be looking at that uniqueness and looking at that inherent disadvantages that uniqueness brings, and inherent advantages as well. Communication is an inherent disadvantage of a school district that big. It's very difficult to communicate with all the folks you need to communicate with in real time with all the information they need. And we'll see some of the ways Middletown has successfully done that, but that is overcoming one of a major disadvantage of that uniqueness of being so big. The next few slides, we wanted to give you the background on the last strategic planning process that Middletown went through. So you're going to have the mission, the values, the beliefs. You're going to have the goals of the last process as well. And we're going to get into this at a very granular level at the second forum, because these are the things we want to consider then. So I'm not going to go through them in detail. As I said, there's a 50-page slide. In order for me to go slide by slide, we're going to be here till midnight. I don't think any of us want to be here till midnight, because then I want an hour of your input thereafter. So that gives me till 1 o'clock in the morning, not happening. So let me just keep rolling through. District initiatives here. So this is my favorite part of any data analysis, and that is looking at the good that's happening now. And like I said, oftentimes in a big school district, parents and even students, grandparents, just don't understand just how much is going on. And a lot of this I'm actually very jealous of. When I was a superintendent, you know, some of these I'm going to point out, I wish I was able to do this when I was a superintendent. But you'll see here, these are just the recent accomplishments, all the way from a new arts academy to taking great pride in your national merit scholars, championship athletic teams, award-winning extracurriculars, your chorus and your band. And this continues into new student success initiatives, new programs the district's putting into place. Again, everything from a gifted and talented program to fourth bullet down, super important, mental and behavioral life focus. The goal of any school district, especially in middle and high schools, is make certain that we're serving the needs of the entire student, the needs of the entire child. And you have to put in place discrete programs in order to accomplish that. A tremendous accomplishment for the district. Last bullet, professional development opportunities. That's where instruction happens. It's the hard work of the teachers, and they get helped and supported through professional development. The use of technology is always something I want to see, so that we can work through it and make certain that the instructional technology and the organizational, operational technology is in place to make certain that students have the benefits of a technology program that's going to give them that jump start in college and careers, and also that you're operating efficiently, using technology to operate efficiently. School climate and culture supports, again, tremendously important to make certain that our students are safe. We identify any issues early on, and we support them and help them, which is a key part of education. Academics, tremendous. It could barely fit everything on one slide in terms of everything that's happening here, all the way from the STEM world to new tech labs. On the high school side, you have dual credit courses. As Bill was mentioning, I was the president of a community college. Don't have any more fun than at a community college. But here's where I don't think we're truly pushing the dial enough and helping students get those credits, keep the cost of higher education down. And right here we have 13 dual credit courses. That's 40 credits a student can leave Middletown with. 40 credits. That's over a year head start in college. You send your child to a private college or university, that's $60,000 in your pocket if you want to look at it that way. Elective courses, early college academy with Brookdale, community college, just sensational work going on. The specialized programs, hold on, just clicking, there we go, as well. Why is it not? There we go. So what I say to my son, first check that there's not a screw loose behind the wheel before you, and I think it might have been me. Extracurriculars and athletics, tremendous advantages to having a depth and breadth of curriculum and enrichment, and you can just see all of the activities that elementary school kids, middle school kids, and high school kids will have. And back again to staff professional development, which is, needless to say, robust here. Community and public relations. As I indicated, one of the inherent disadvantages of a large district is connecting parents, connecting students, connecting the community, connecting the 12 elementary schools. Difficult, but this is the way you do it. Right here is the way you do it. Okay. We're now going to move on to student achievement and school climate data. Going to move through quickly. Each one of your schools have had presentations on your student performance data. Needless to say, as a general proposition, when I went through your data, it was impressive to me. I think you are achieving at high levels across your schools, and I'll just point out some of the ways you're doing that. Your graduation rate. Ultimately, the federal government, the state will look to your ultimate outcome. What's your ultimate outcome? Well, what happens to your seniors? Do they graduate on time? And here, both of your high schools are beating the statewide average by over 4 points. So that is a real good indicator that you are performing at high levels. SAT scores, both high schools are beating the state averages. AP courses is tremendous. Dual enrollment, which of course I love. You're 3 times the state average on dual enrollment and higher than the state average on post-secondary enrollment. So these are all your ultimate outcome data. What happens to your seniors? They're graduating with credits through your dual enrollment. They're going on to secondary enrollment, and their SAT scores are excellent. Percentage meeting and exceeding expectations on PARC. Overall, as you work through all the dizzying array of state assessment data, you will see that on the whole, the district outperforms the state almost across the board. Again, all this data is going to be on the website, and I'm trying to get through this in exactly 30 minutes, so I'm going to pick up the pace just a little bit. Student growth percentile, that is the calculation done by the state based upon state assessment data in terms of how every district moves individual students, how well that individual student grows from year to year. The goal is to have at least moderate growth, and you accomplish that, especially interesting at the middle school level where you see that moderate growth across the board, which is very difficult at the middle school level, by the way. School climate indicators, I always focus on chronic absenteeism. As you see here, your elementary schools overall have chronic absenteeism that is less than the state average. You climb a little bit in the middle, and a high school level, it's still below the state average. Okay, community demographic data. So what does this say? This is your census data, right? This is from your census. And so what we've done is compare across Census 2000, Census 2010, and we're not going to have the 2020 census data for a little while yet, but the U.S. Census Office actually puts out an interim benchmark called the American Community Survey, and pulling up Middletown data, we can see these trend lines are actually continuing into the future. We're going to see the median age grow. We're going to see the population under 18 decline, and population overall decline slightly. But as you know, as the median age goes up, normally your births will go down. And so we're going to see these trend lines continue into the future, so long as that ACS 2017 survey is a good predictor. Now, the ACS is not a great predictor overall because it's a survey. It's not every household will get a knock on the door and ask to fill out a form, but it does seem to indicate that that trend line will continue. Student enrollment, the takeaway here is just go to the bottom right-hand corner. Your elementary schools will lose projected 626 students. That's a lot. That's equivalent of almost 2 schools. And it's a challenge that I'm sure will surface during the process. What's the class size data? Class size. Absolutely. This slide? Okay. Yeah, this is based on a demographic study that was done by a demographer who will look at your births, will look at new developments, will look at your cohort survival rate, and will come up with a projection. So the answer to that question is yes, but if that becomes a place where we want to look at and study a little bit more, there's more data that we can look at to give you a better sense of what factors were brought into the calculation of 5 people. The demographer would include new developments. Yeah. And so we can look at that. The demographic study is available and we can take a deeper dive in that. I'm not a demographer. I do play one on TV, so I think I can help us work through that a little bit. But the answer to that question is births and new developments are taken into account. And so we can do a deeper dive on that as we get to that point. Yes, yes.
I just have a follow-up question on that. You were talking about data, and this is a 5-year plan?
It is.
So I was just curious why all this enrollment data only goes to 2022?
Yeah, that's your latest demographic data. It goes out to that school year, right? So your demographic data will just take you out that year.
But for a 5-year plan, should we be looking at like 5 years of enrollment data?
We use the demographic data that the district has. It's very expensive to get a new demographic study, but if you question that data is not right, well, let's talk about it. Don't forget, there's no right or wrong answer here. We're just trying to understand your question. As a matter of fact, we'll spend some more time on that a little bit later if you want.
I'm not questioning whether the data is right or wrong. I'm just questioning if it's a 5-year plan, why it's only this, if we might be basing some conclusions on enrollment data, why that enrollment data only goes to 2022 as opposed to 2024, which might give us that more broad 5-year perspective.
Yeah, all the data we used are based on currently available public data sets. So that's the answer, is that all the assessment data is based on the currently available public data sets on assessment, probably a year behind of your last data administration, your last test administration. And same thing with almost all of these. It's the publicly available data sets. And some do lag a little bit, but it's important to have the publicly available data sets because we all want to make certain we're seeing the same thing. So that's why we use that. But again, if that becomes an issue, we'll talk more about it and we'll try to figure out if we can do maybe some updates on that. So we'll talk. This is just the first session and we'll hear a lot more about this topic as we go.
This data actually cannot be right. 5 years ago, you couldn't have known that from this over here to Newman Springs Road, there was going to be 400 new tax lots. It's impossible that this could be accurate.
Right. And I think it really pays because it's good that I have this input because I think we're going to spend some more time on this at one of the Form 2 or Form 3 because this is a concern that demographic data might not be accurate in your mind. We'll talk about it. This is not an uncommon conversation to have during the strategic planning process when we're looking at enrollment drops. And so we know the census data seems to indicate very clearly there's going to be a population drop the median age going up. So we have some ability to verify that demographic data through census data, but by all means, let's spend time on it. And so I will get that data, and we'll spend some time on it, and we'll work through it. And so we'll see the limits of the data. All data has limits, right? We all understand that the data will have limits, but this is what the data is showing, and we just need to understand the limits of the data, and then make certain that if you have questions, we'll answer it. We have a demographic study. Like I said, I'm not a demographer, but I can certainly help us unpack what's in that demographic study. And maybe if I can't help you answer the questions, we'll get the demographer. Grab the demographer, get him on the line, and we'll ask him some questions. All right, let's keep moving, because I want to get to the forum. Class size information, you'll see at the lower right-hand corner, the average class sizes in each grade level. Class sizes are very important baseline data for us to understand and make certain that any decisions that you're providing input on, we understand the implications on average class sizes. 20.1 grade 1, 22.5 grade 2, 21.3 grade 3, 23.4 grade 4, 21.9 in grade 5. Now let's look at middle schools and high schools. The demographers projected that we're going to see declines across all three of our middle schools. And pretty much stability in our high schools. One thing we should always keep in mind that districts with a large number of schools, whether you're in an urban setting or a suburban setting, you're going to want to allow students to move across those school attendance zones as best you can, because that gives you that sense of community that students should be allowed to go across attendance zones. And so I always ask, to what extent are you allowing students to move across attendance zones now, across those elementary boundaries? And there's actually a fair degree of students moving a good chunk in special ed, but also in the general ed population as well. Let's move to some data on equity and access. We're going to look at the special ed population, students with Section 504 plans, which might have some disability but doesn't require an educational or special educational program, English language learners, and low-income students. And what's remarkable here is the students who are receiving individual education plans. IEP is going substantially up, which is providing some degree of stress on the district in terms of making certain they have the programs and services they need. The other areas were basically stable. You can see this, you're looking at the trend line here from 2017 to 1984. We have a pretty severe trend line heading on up that will become a challenge. I think that we work through this. We have a number of staffing indicators, teacher experience indicators. Good news for the district. The years of experience with teachers is tremendous here. The teachers' attainment in terms of degrees is tremendous. Attendance is great. It's always a great indicator. We want to look at our teachers coming to the schools when they should, and clearly they already. The audience should really take a bow on that. The area where almost every school district in New Jersey is struggling is bringing minority teachers into the workforce. That's a statewide issue, and that statewide issue is seen here as well. Pretty key budget indicators. We have budgetary costs. If you go to the right-hand column, your peer ranking, 28 out of 97, which means you're a low-spending district per pupil. But when you go to classroom instruction, you're in the middle of the pack, which means even though you're low spending overall, you're able to push a lot of available dollars into the classroom, which is a key indicator. When I look at district efficiency, I focus on that issue right there, and it's tremendous to see that here in Middletown, that you're low spending, but of course a lot of the dollars into the classroom. Facilities, here's where you have tremendous challenges, of course. Your capacity is pretty sizable across your elementary schools. The capacity, of course, is at the last column. Same in your 2 of your 3 middle schools and 1 of your 2 high schools. Overall, the secondary level, the excess capacity of 492. At the same time, however, you have the excess capacity, you're spending a tremendous amount of money on your maintenance and upkeep of those facilities. The problem that leads to is that you have finite resources. As I indicated before, your state aid revenues are starting to dry up. You're spending more on your maintenance of your facilities. You're spending more on special education programs and services. And that's going to require some tough decisions, which we will spend some time going through with you. Here's a better look at pretty much the stagnating growth in your revenues, and that if your budget stays in its current structure and current delivery system, you're going to be sizable deficits beginning in the next school budget years. More information on that budgetary cliff is here as well. And then just your quick approach, if you wanted more data on your elementary enrollments, here you have it. So there is an overview of those 50 slides that you will find on the district's website. And I appreciate your allowing me to get through this. I know it was a tremendous amount of data, but hopefully you will see that this data is going to help us present a ability for us to get on the same page, see the same things, and then make some fundamental decisions. All right, now is the fun time. We're going to move on to our little town forum, and we just expect you to be honest with us. We want your thoughts, and so the first questions we're going to ask you to give us your thoughts on are, it's kind of like everyone's heard of a SWOT analysis, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats. We're going to do a little modified analysis to have our conversation move a little bit. But the 4 questions I'm going to focus on tonight are, what does the district do well? If you could change, second question, if you could change one thing about the district, what would it be? What challenges exist now and in the future that might come from within the district, like enrollment pressures, or from external to the district in terms of revenues? Do you see opportunities to improve now or in the future? So those are the 4 questions I'm going to ask, and I would repeat those periodically so you have a good sense of it. But again, it's just a, what does the district do well? What challenges, if you could change something in the district, what would it be? And what opportunities do you see to improve? And we're going to ask you to come to the mic and give us your thoughts on those 4 questions so we can get a sense of what you're thinking, what your perspective is. So just to get a sense of the room, so how many parents of elementary students do we have here? Just raise your hand. Okay, so that tells us a lot. How about middle school students? Okay, very good. Okay, so many large families. High school students. Okay, so we got it covered. So we got all the grades covered. which is excellent. Faculty and staff members, awesome. Hey, thanks for coming. I know it's a long night, so that's great. Thanks for that. How about any students? Every now and then we have a few students who come. Maybe we'll get them Saturday. I love when the students come, because this is all about them, right? This is all about that ability to work and help them out. That's why I always see this as, you know, we're trying to have some fun. We should move this quickly, but we also have to remember this is very, very serious, because this is our duty. This is our duty to our children. And because of that, I do ask you for some ground. So indulge me on some ground rules, just to make certain we go through this. Don't forget, we're asking questions here. This is not, there's no action being taken or anything like that. We're just trying to get input. So because of that, think through what your input is, right? Take a position, but then tell us, well, what should we do? You think the Gifted and Talented program should be improved? You think it's a great program? But then tell us, well, what should the district do to improve, or how do we make certain that that doesn't, a very successful Gifted and Talented program doesn't get cut in the future? So give us a position, certainly, but also give us some thoughts about what you would do to make that particular situation better. Make certain it's all constructive and useful to us, because just comments, they're great, but they're not actually going to wind up informing our strategic planning process. If someone has already made the same comment that you made, you might want to consider just filling out an index card and just indicating, I just want to make certain you knew that there are other folks in the audience who thought the same way. But you don't necessarily have to come to the mic. Needless to say, everyone with respect and be courteous. And to reduce transition times, if you can maybe write down on a piece of paper what you want to say. And when you come to the mic, put it out there. And then when you're done, you're done. So we can keep it moving quickly. I'm going to ask everyone 2 minutes. We're not going to be timing you, but other people might be timing you if they're trying to get to the mic. So 2 minutes if you could. I might nudge you in a very friendly type of way if we're running past 2 minutes. Make certain that when you get to the mic, if you just give us a sense of what your relationship to the district is. Are you a student, a parent, elementary? And also, it would be helpful to us if we understood where in Middletown you live, either in relation to an elementary school or a zip code or a neighborhood would be great. And last but not least, and by the way, this is one of the best audiences on this, but we're going to be trying to really take down everything you say. So, and I haven't heard a cell phone ring yet, but make certain your cell phone's on vibrate so we don't interrupt anyone when they're trying to speak and making them start over again or feel disrespected. Okay, with that said, the mic is yours.
I live in the River Plaza section. I have 3 children. One's already out of schools. I have a middle school child and a senior in South. So I just want to say some of the pros I thought in the district that they do really well with the AP and honors. Technology is great. I'm glad they brought behavioral health into the schools because that's really important these days. One thing I really want to talk about is special ed in the district. I've had 2 children with IEPs. One of them is out and one of them is a senior. And I just wish that we could, with all of the accomplishments we do, I wish we could look a little more at special ed and see more, get to be more of a priority committee. I know the district may think it is, but of course a lot of parents, we don't feel we're quite a priority. There's a lot of changes that happen in special ed. A lot of students, they have to shift schools because of where they're going to be placed. That puts a lot of stress on the children. They would like to be in their home school, so we could offer more in their home school so they don't have to switch. Another good thing that I'd like to look into is children who are dyslexic. There are so many children in this district who are dyslexic, and I know the district has done a great job training teachers in Wilson. It's just not, we don't see it being implemented. And I would love to find a way that it could be implemented, whether it be an elective type of, so that the kids could actually learn it and have it a couple of days a week. Not just kind of, oh, we're going to be a multi-sensory and they're going to learn a little bit in the classroom, but it really could be implemented the way it should be. Also with children who would like to take honors courses, they cannot take an honors, if they have an IEP, they don't offer in the honors courses a co-teacher. So my children did not take honors courses because they really needed a co-teacher to help them. I can understand an EP because once they get to college they will not have a co-teacher, but it would be helpful for honors courses. And the other thing I would just, last thing I would pull out is, talk about is to promote vocational schools a little more. My son, who graduated in 2018, I really wanted him to go to VOTEC. I did not think he was going to be college ready, just didn't think he was quite there. I kept saying, Terrence, why don't we look at VOTEC? Why don't we look at VOTEC? No. Because everyone else was saying they have to be ready for college. You have to go to college. And he felt he was going to be a disappointment. We tried the college route, and now he's going in, that's what he's looking into. So I wish there would be a little more exposure to the VOTEC. In 8th grade, maybe take the kids, all the 8th graders, to look at the VOTEC. So it's not a difference. So if they're hanging out with friends who know they're definitely going to college, you're like, you know what, this is really cool too. Let me do this. So I wish that there would be a little more emphasis on vocational schools. The district sends out a lot of phone blasts. One parent said, you know, we got 4 or 5 phone blasts about the AP courses and sign up for AP courses. There's never any phone blasts for, like maybe once for like the VOTEC, they're going to talk about VOTEC. Never talk about any special ed programs that just a little more. Like I said, they do great for college preparedness. My younger one, that's going to be her route. My older 2 have struggled. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
For those of you who are coming to the microphone, just know that we're going to try to do some real-time comments, and if you see we miss some of your comments, come on up and just let me know. We'll edit it for you. But it's good for everyone to be able to see that we are recording the comments. Actually, Stacy to my left is recording them in great detail. Tremendous data analyst here for us. But just feel free to come and tell me, touch me, and say if you missed something. Thanks. That's a great comment. Thank you.
Hi, I have 3 kids have gone and going through the district. Homeschool is Nutsong, Thompson, and High School South. I don't want to sound repetitive of the prior person that just spoke, but I think the district does really, really well with overachievers. My daughter, who was a go-getter and overachiever, the sky was the limit. I have another child that is probably my smartest child, who will do the bare minimum. So he does good enough, and nobody pays that much attention to him, and he kind of goes by. The minute a teacher pays any attention, he soars. And then my third one has special needs. And in my case, my child is younger, and that is an area I also believe needs to be looked at. I think the survey was very lacking of any conversation on special needs, and I feel one of the issues of special needs is kind of in a silo, and I would love to see it tie more into curriculum and focus on how we educate the children versus what buildings we put them in. Also, I see all the accomplishments that are listed there, but maybe in technology, there could be accomplishments on technology surrounding helping kids that are dyslexic or have other needs that could use programs that could help them succeed in the general ed classroom. So if I look at my notes, I'd just love to see more focus on inclusion, data research-based strategy on how to teach our kids. I think we also need to address the validity of current strategies. Years ago, there were no resource rooms in elementary schools. We brought them back. Have they met our goals? I don't know. Tie into curriculum. To give an example of tying into curriculum, our kids don't have access to the 3 tiers of intervention. If they don't apply for extended school year in summer, they can't go to the reading programs. So it's very special ed versus the typical gen ed track. And also I would think it would be really useful for somebody to understand why the special ed classifications went up 300 students in 2 years, and make sure that there's not some issue that we're missing things. I can't believe we've had 300 new students come in 2 years. So just looking at the data. Thank you.
I just want to say, take your opportunity. I came up with as a parent, TA, school board member, our stakeholders for 24 years, working with districts on all sorts of things, and school funding is one of them, big focus on special education is another. And don't miss your opportunity tonight just to give us a handle on the ambience kind of, beginning speakers, but I hope they're not again, because you all are here for a reason. You probably have something that you're feeling. Not that we want all of you to get up and speak, I don't mean that, but don't miss your chance, because we'll miss you.
This way you can see me poke on this screen a lot more here. Past this though, finger tight.
I'm going to reiterate some of the things that have just been said. I am also a parent of a special education student. I have found that it's a terrible process. I think that we need to do so much better. My son is in elementary school and has had to fight for help. The New Jersey Department of Education lays out a guideline to help children. We do none of that. We have no early identification. We have no early identification. We don't early screen. We don't follow any real RTI or IRS protocols. They're outlined because they've been researched, but they're not followed in our elementary schools. Identifying children at 2nd grade who are struggling with reading or math is a great way to capture and help them. I think personally, if I were to say why it has gone up 300%, it's because we're not helping kids when they need to be helped. We are waiting and we are kicking and screaming to give them help. I have had to jump through hoops, hire a lawyer to get my child help that he obviously needed. I am fighting people who continue to tell me next year, move on, seems to be okay, but it has never been okay. And I think that I am one of many parents who are incredibly sad and frustrated at our system. We can do better, we have to do better, our kids deserve more. And I think that it's been an incredible disappointment to me to see how we're treating our most vulnerable students, and they represent 20% of our population. Not one of those slides up there, when you were speaking about all the great things you're doing, ever mentioned special ed. The only time you mentioned it was to identify it exists and by the quantity. Not one time did one of those slides on services and academics and achievements mention special ed, and that's sad, and that is one of the biggest problems.
have just one daughter in Navison. Some of the things that the district does well is having the kids work in groups a lot. There's a lot more chance to socialize and learn through socialization. It could always be, increased, but they certainly are working on doing that well. I believe that those at the top have the right philosophy and ideas about education and agree with me in a lot of things, but I don't see it getting out to all the teachers. And I think it needs to be, if you have a great idea up at the top, that needs to be pushed to the teachers faster so that more kids get to take advantage of that good idea instead of waiting for 10 years till it gets piloted and modeled and blah, 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 blah. Just get it out there and get the teachers to do it. Like Spark, for instance. I also think the school is great with its having small neighborhood schools. Those are just absolutely valuable and something never to be gotten rid of. The chance to walk or bike to school, stop at a store on the way home and pick up a snack. Those are great experiences for kids and having that small nurturing thing where everyone in the school knows you is extremely important. The teachers also have been excellent. I have no real complaints about the teachers whatsoever. I think that's something the district does really well. And in general, I find everyone is open to listening to parents and sitting down and having a conversation with parents. One change that I would make is move towards a much more student-directed / play-based learning style model. There's no time for me to stand here and explain exactly what I mean, but basically the kids come in, they work on something that's in their interest, in their learning style, and they're learning through their explorations, perhaps with other students. I think that overall that would meet individual needs without all kinds of extra special services. That would decrease behavior problems because the kids aren't being stressed out by doing things that are that's above them. And you just wouldn't, it would be cheaper because you wouldn't have to pay for all kinds of these curriculums like Go Math and everything. And it would meet everybody's needs and learning styles without all this effort and these hula hoops we're jumping through. The challenges that I see this district is facing now is having not enough physical space for the kids. There's places where there isn't a real kindergarten room. Schools don't have an art or music room, rooms for special services. There's large class sizes for some. And on that note, even though we see a lot of more older population moving in now, there's going to be a time when that older population moves out and the younger population moves in. Maybe that's not for 10 years, but at some point, I don't see how we can say that our population is going to continue to go down. Maybe for 5 years it might, but in 10 years it's going to go back up. I would say, not to mention with all that building. And opportunities to improve, I can't really elaborate on this, but meeting individual needs better. And all my details, they're in a letter I sent to strategic planning, so I'm not going to go into details. Being more green, looking after the students' health a little bit more, which would include more hand washing and getting outside more. Adding recess back to middle school. Making public speaking and class performances be something for everyone to do, not just up to a teacher deciding to do it. Uncompartmentalizing grade 4 and 5. I believe that they're finding it to be rushed and it's not as nurturing as kindergarten to 3, and 4 and 5 still needs it. Decreasing the focus and use of technology, especially the technology learning programs. Things that I've heard of are going on in middle school. There's a few things coming into the elementary school. I think the best way to learn is through human interaction and interaction with things in the real world. And that's it.
Hi, my name is Rachel Kanopka. I have 3 kids in Middletown schools, 2 here at Thompson and 1 in 5th grade at Nutswamp. I apologize, I did not kind of write down my thoughts in preparation for tonight along those question lines, so I'll try to make it fit in, but there may be some disconnect. First, I just want to say thank you for having a forum like this where we can come and not only say what we think, but listen to what other parents and people of the district are saying. I think that's really important. I also was very grateful for the presentation and all the data points. There was some stuff that was new to me in there, and I've been to a lot of Board of Ed meetings and seen a lot of presentations, so I really appreciated that. I think, I'm here tonight not only as a parent with kids in the district, but also as a taxpayer in this town, and one who wants to see my home values stay strong and hopefully go up. And I feel like, I know for me, moving back here with my children, one of the biggest reasons I did was for the schools. So I think it's critical that we not just think about this plan as it relates to the current students, but also to all of the residents of Middletown, and making sure that our schools they remain a very strong selling point for all of our homes. I know everybody focuses a lot on taxes, and yeah, we pay a lot. But I also think it's critical to think of it almost defensively, where we need to maintain or increase our investment in the schools to protect our long-term property values. I'd much rather pay a little more in taxes to know that my home value is going to stay stable or increase over time. So I think we need to just keep that in mind overall. One data point, I guess first, recognizing that we are a unique district and that we have 17 schools. I know when you look around, like at Homedale, Rumson, Fairhaven, they're elite schools in our area, elite districts, but their structure is different, and they have much fewer buildings. And I feel like that's one of our Achilles heels in a way, is that we have so many buildings that we have to maintain from a cost perspective. And perhaps finding a way to be more cost effective and efficient, we could actually devote more of our dollars that are currently going to running 17 buildings to go toward the schools to decrease class sizes, for example, and hire more teachers. But one data point that wasn't in the deck is the cost per school to keep that school open in any given year. I think we know the number of kids who are there, we know the size, square footage, etc., but we don't know how much it costs to keep that building open, and I think that would be a useful data point for all of us to see as we're looking moving forward. My next set of comments had to do with my own experience here in Middletown as a student. Back when I was in middle school here in Middletown in the early 90s, there was something called activity arts that was built into the curriculum, which basically was a set of hands-on exploratory classes that lasted about 6 weeks each, and you cycled through them as a 6th, 7th, and 8th grader. And they were something everybody took. It wasn't something that was an elective. The classes that kids took were things like keyboarding, learning how to type, sewing, mechanical drawing, wood shop, metal shop, computer programming. There was a slew of them. I tried to remember all the ones that I could. And as a student, I remember that being one of the highlights of my day, honestly. I loved going to those classes, and I feel like it exposed me and my classmates to so many different things beyond academics. And I think that was really critical, because I know it impacted me in terms of what courses I chose in high school. I was informed by what I had learned about or been exposed to in middle school. Those classes don't exist right now in the middle school. My two daughters are in 7th grade, and there's something called Cycle, which is an elective, which gives them 4 kind of exploratory classes a year, but it's nothing with the depth and breadth that existed 30 years ago. So I personally feel like that's an opportunity for the district to try to go back to that. And it kind of feeds into some of the vote tech discussion that somebody brought up earlier, where not every kid is going to thrive academically, but it doesn't mean they won't thrive in other areas and build their self-confidence, and also honestly use a different part of their brain during the day, which might need some exercising. The other thing that this kind of stems to is, I know now, I don't have any high schoolers yet, but I know that there is I don't want to call it a push, but an opportunity for kids to specialize very early now. You can pick to go to an academy as a 9th grader. You can pick a pathway as a 9th grader. So we're giving kids these opportunities to specialize as, a 13-year-old, 14-year-old, when we haven't exposed them to all of the things that they could be exposed to. So I feel like we've kind of done this backwards thing where we've narrowed them in middle school and then said, okay, now pick a path in high school, when we haven't given them the full menu yet. So I think that's an opportunity. The other thing I feel like this ties to is the whole mental health discussion. I know Responsive Classroom was put into the elementary schools this year, and I saw the PIC presentation on it and was so excited about it. My 5th grader at Nut Swamp tells me about the morning meetings. I really think it's a wonderful program, and I applaud the district for rolling it out. I kind of feel like some of the mental health issues that may exist right now for our older kids may tie directly to the fact that their day is so academically driven. They're stressed out, they're thinking, oh, as a 9th grader, since I can take an AP class, maybe I should take an AP class. So they're signing themselves up for these classes that may be beyond their real potential at that point, and they're overextending, and then they get stressed out, and then they get anxious, and then you have substance abuse, and then you have suicidal thoughts. Like there's this downward spiral that I feel like we're almost setting our kids up to be stressed out and anxious, and we need to kind of take a step back and look, as they're late elementary and middle school, how can we address that? And maybe one of the ways is to let them have more time in their school day that's not pure academia, and maybe it's more of this hands-on kind of creative learning, exploratory learning like existed in the 90s with these activity arts classes. One other thing, I'm jumping all over the place, I apologize, but the discussion about inclusion that came up earlier with some of the speakers. We see, based on the data, that what we define as a special ed population is increasing, and I think that has to do with the fact that every kid is special in some way. It's a spectrum, and I think the more that we recognize that if we want to truly allow all kids to thrive, we need to include them in everything. A neurotypical child, a typically developing child, will benefit from having all types of children in their class. So I don't think it's just about inclusion for the special education student. Inclusion benefits everybody, and I think as we move forward as a district, this is a huge opportunity for Middletown to maybe take this as something that we can be a leader in. I know up to this point, I don't get the sense from other parents that parents are very happy with the special education opportunities that exist, or kind of the inclusion that's been felt. I think that's a huge opportunity moving forward, especially as the special ed population is growing on paper. The only other thing I wanted to kind of bring up as it relates to facilities is, and it echoes a point that was just made, the space for group activities, at least in our elementary school, and I can only really speak about Nut Swamp, is very limited. So there's one all-purpose room, kind of similar to this, and as of right now, all of the students at Nut Swamp, which is approaching 600, I believe, can't even fit in that room at once for an assembly. And it's also used as the lunchroom, and you can't even fit all of the kids, half the school in there for lunch. So every single day, there are 2 grades worth of kids who have to eat in their classroom, and it rotates through. I think it's like a 2-week rotation. I think we need to think about, when we say capacity, I know physically, yes, we could probably squish more people into these buildings, but it doesn't mean that it's the most productive use of space or the most effective use of space for building community among the students and having kids be able to eat with their full grade or with the school as opposed to separated out in their classroom. I guess the one last thing, this is probably the biggest point, I think if there's a single metric that the district should focus on as kind of what we should be setting as our goal moving forward, it's decreasing class sizes. I know that there are we have, a variation in it. There's baby booms, so you have certain grades where it's squished and certain grades where it's not. But when we're looking at, an elementary classroom that has 27 kids in 5th grade or 4th grade, and you have one teacher who's now expected to deliver personalized learning to 27 students, it's just impossible. The only metric I feel like statistically that everybody can agree on needs to happen is that the smaller the class size is, the better off it is for each student, and the better off it is for the teacher. So I realize we're kind of between a rock and a hard place where we have 17 schools, we have 10,000 kids, but we got to figure out a way to take our money and put it towards hiring teachers so that we can have the class sizes go down. I don't know what this means. I don't have the silver bullet. I know it's not going to be an easy answer, but I think like I said, if there's one metric that means the most to everybody that all of us can agree on, it's that we need to get our class sizes smaller if we can, so that every kid and every kid can benefit and every teacher has the opportunity to really do their job well. Thank you.
Hi there. I have one child in kindergarten for one month in Leonardo. So I'll keep this short because I have a lot to learn. One thing I think that has been wonderful so far is the teachers, the principal, the staff. Speaking for Leonardo Elementary especially, it was incredibly welcoming. I know their kids are having a wonderful start to the school year, so we're all very grateful and thankful for that, so that's awesome. I just want to echo a couple of the comments about school capacity and the actual building spaces that we have. I was a little surprised to learn more about our school at Narrow, and that all-purpose room being the gym also serves as the assembly room, the cafeteria, our music room, our art classroom. And for me, I was a little disheartened about that because my kindergartner is especially in tune with the arts, and that's definitely his strong suit. And I know it brings him out of some moments that he struggles with, so I pay attention to that. I think it's not so much about space. It definitely does foster children connecting and getting to know one another more and having that social interaction for sure. But I think it indicates a lot about our curriculums for the arts and music, especially for the younger kids. And that's really a crucial time to introduce them to artistic learnings and creativity, and just really kind of pushing that envelope. So I would kind of encourage looking at the use of our space in the buildings, and if there's ways that we could maybe find dedicated spaces for music construction, art classes. The fact that they're in a shared space like that means that they're not exactly working on art projects that require them to come back to that project time and time again, and really learn process and what it is to work on something for an extended period of time. What kind of musical instruments are they really learning if it's something that has to be packed up quickly so that lunch can come into that room. So that would be one thing that I would hope that we look at through the strategy process.
Hi, I'm from Middletown Village, and I just have one child in elementary school, so I can't really speak to the middle schools or high schools yet. But I do think the elementary schools do an amazing job of creating a strong community. Like at our school, we always say it takes a village, and it really does. It feels like we're a family. We're all very strongly connected to each other. I think they do a great job on focusing on individualized learning. One of my major concerns going forward is the impact of all the new developments on our elementary communities. I would love to see more of the demographers study on the impact of the Taylor Lane development, the Four Ponds developments, and what they're going to do to the enrollment numbers. I know a lot of figures were brought up earlier about only going out to 2022, and I'm not exactly sure when those numbers were initially developed, or when these developments were approved. So I'd like to see the impact also with their tax revenues. Does that detract from the deficit numbers that are coming out? Also, when you were going through the numbers, it looks like there was a lot of Taylor Lane and Four Ponds and Bam Hollow. Four Ponds, yeah, like the number 4. Four Ponds, Taylor. Oh, and the Middletown Center. Any other ones? Yeah, there's been a lot of new construction that has just been approved in the past couple of years. So I would love to see the impact on the enrollment numbers going forward. There's a lot of townhouses coming in, a lot of single-family homes. So I imagine that would be a lot of children coming into the community. So if we could get updated demographic numbers, I think that would help a lot of the decisions that we're making going forward. Also, with the square footage numbers, we kind of touched on that. With the APR, like having an APR room for everything. Also, it seems like some of the schools have similar square footage, but some of them have much higher capacity for students. So I was wondering if there could be some sort of facilities analysis to see why there's such big differences, why one school with 32,000 square feet fits 200 students and another one fits over 400 students. I don't know if that means we're not quite utilizing our space well. Again, I know we have 17 different schools, but we are such a unique community, all the different villages and towns within Middletown, and it is good to have that interconnectedness and that small town school feel that we touched before, and it doesn't, from what I could tell, seem like any of the schools could actually be combined right now with the space available. So I don't know if closing schools or anything would actually be an option. So with all the changing numbers, is something like trailers or to get us through some of the bumps an option, or utilizing the bubble? I just feel like we have to explore a lot of different ideas to get through the current overcrowding we're seeing in Thompson and South right now. And that's it. That's what I have for now.
A number of folks were shouting out developments. Did I get them all there?
Van Hollow, B-A-N-N Hollow.
Those are full colleges, it's small
Great. If you do, by the way, if you still come on up and just talk to me at the end and let me know. And also, if there's data that you'd like to see, just let me know and we'll develop that for you. Don't forget, we're partners here. We're partnering together, and I want to make certain my partner has all the information you need. So if there's more data or there's some research you want, come on up and just chat with me about it. We'll make certain we find it for you to guide our forums 2 and 3. So we will be doing a repeat performance of Forum 1 tomorrow at 9:30, and then Saturday morning at 9:30. So if you think of something, please feel free to come. You have our business cards on the table. You have index cards on our table. The more we hear from you, the happier we are. Isn't that a kid's song or something like that? I can't remember, but in any event, thanks for participating tonight. Do you want me to close out, Mr. Superintendent? Okay. Thanks for coming. We really need to see you on Forum 2, which is going to be in November. So it would be a personal favor if you came to Forum 2 and Forum 3. Make certain you go onto the website. All the information is there. Travel safe home. Glad it wasn't last night.